Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to the drive time with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, and we have Adnan this morning as well from LP, LPA Properties. Obviously, a bit like YMCA back in the days when Adnan was a young, aspiring professional. And basically, today's topic is going to be a continuation of the week, which is debt an illusion? And we associate that with lots of other things around debt and mental illness, depression. Having said that, the drive time yesterday, our friend Mohsin Ravjani mentioned that there are approximately 8 million people in the UK that are on the board are on the border of losing their homes and are actually potentially depressed. So big shout out to Mohsin, a man who is somewhat leading the cause in trying to get people out of depression and getting them back into a working environment and getting them rehoused. He's a bit like, we could call him the Wizard of Oz of the housing market. That's right, pulling those levers there with all his contacts. Yeah, trying to get people rehoused, getting them back into employment. Yeah, talking about getting people back. We've got Lakhi Singh, obviously, we've not asked him yet. So Lakhi Singh, good morning to your drive time session, continuing with the topic of illusion and debt, and taking into mind the quote of the weekend that progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. So what have you got to say for that quote of the weekend? And what have you got to say for the ongoing topic that we've got, which today we shall be culminating in debt being an illusion and matters of illness, mental fragilities and things around that.
Is that question to Adnan?
Talking to you, Lakhi Singh, the property fixer.
Sorry, I had a bit of noise in the background, so I missed some of the bits there. Just the question is around debt and what do I make of it?
Noise in the background. Yeah. So we've got a question that was raised, or a point that was raised by Mohsin Ravijani, who said about 8 million people are on the verge of losing their homes and possibly are potential patients of depression. And because he's leading the cause in rehousing people, and you're the fixer, we gave a big shout out to him. And I asked you, in light of the quote of the weekend, progress, not perfection. So progress, not perfection. Any comments, Lakhi?
I think in reference to the quote, I think, having a positive intention, working incrementally in small steps, and incrementally is going to be important for anybody who's stuck in any type of debt or a mental health illness type of issue. So my main point is we've set up a group for anybody to communicate, talk to us. And if you are going through a difficult time, we have access to professionals through Mohsin, through Carolyn, through our own teams. So always happy to help, always happy to have a listening ear. So that's what I would say for the moment.
And morning to Bob Singh, who's giving you a property fixer shout out. So big property fixer shout out to Bob Singh. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We go over to Adnan. Adnan, because you've been part of this week's discussion, and obviously you've got lots of topics which relate to you, and also don't relate to you. For example, the matter of medical depression. Now, this morning we had a chat before we were getting ready, and I was getting powdered up and signing these autographs. You said you had been under tremendous stress because of the kids. What do you mean by that?
Not stress as in like impending stress, but let's say, for example, since this whole lockdown procedure took place in March, kids are at home. Their mentality was more of a holiday mode. So how kids normally get loud and crazy at home, and here I am trying to work during this period. So it was a bit challenging.
You mean basically they put pressure on you? Do they put pressure on you? Challenging is probably a nicer word. Are you saying they're a pain, or are you saying it's challenging?
It's challenging. It was challenging because where they wanted to go out and do things, I was still, trying to do my work and try to make sure we get some work done, deals closed off. So yeah, it was a lot of difficult moments. Let's put it that way. Trying to work around the kids. Yeah.
Around them, right? So you had. So what were you saying? Did they have arguments with you or something, or what do you mean by challenging and difficult?
Oh no, kids are going to be kids regardless. As you probably know, VJ. They just want attention of their parents, and obviously they want to do things with their parents and want to spend money, and you know how it is with kids. So it's like, that was probably the most challenging part for me, trying to balance both them being at home for this long. I mean, 6 weeks is 6 weeks. So, people we can handle, like we go on holidays, do whatever. But for 6 months or 5 months, whatever it was, it was very difficult. And now they're back at school, they'll have some routine in their place now. And hence that will help me now concentrate on what I need to do and get done.
Let me put it unmute. Adnan, so what I'm getting from you is that in the way that we've had a lockdown, all of a sudden, okay, it's actually created a bit of disorder. Is that what you're saying? It's like you were used to certain routine, things happen, all of a sudden the lockdown out of the blue has hit us, and we've had to rethink how we're managing all the relationships, the time zones. Actually tells you that there is a lot of energy and effort required when you're trying to do business. It's not easy to be doing business, and if you think it's easy, you need to try it. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. That's 100% right.
I'm good. Lakhi, I know you've got two adults, or children, sorry, who have to go to uni, I think, and college. How have you handled the school or these exceptional holidays because of the virus?
It's not been too bad. Kids are fairly grown up. They're quite mature, so they haven't had any issues with them. I think my kids are probably a bit more grown up, so they're probably a bit more adult than me. I'm probably more like the noisy one. Probably a bit like Adnan's kids. Probably stress them out. I'll probably stress my kids out. It's the opposite. So I feel, well, joking aside, it's been quite tough dealing with being in an enclosed environment in the same space for a long time. So I think anybody in that situation is going to have some sort of mental pressure or stress around their day-to-day. And it could actually be a trigger to some form of mental illness as well. I mean,
okay, so the question, okay, let's keep that pause. We've got 3 shout outs. Bob, obviously, we've had already. We've got a shout out from Mina, got a shout out from Carolyn and Sergio. So all 3, big shout out from you 3 young ladies. Thank you very much for joining us. The topic is now taking a turn with Lakhi Singh being a child, basically, trapped in a man's body, and the fact that he's finding it more difficult dealing with himself than dealing with other children. Is that what you're saying, Lakhi?
Yeah, I think that's quite a good intro. I think I've actually found it probably tougher than that I would expect to actually be in a very restricted environment. So I think there's something called cabin fever, which is a lot of people get if they're stuck in a submarine underwater for weeks on end. So I think there may have been an element of that. So and I think it's maybe a lack of deficiency in vitamins or the circulation, but definitely wasn't something that I think I can do easily again, because it's not really wasn't really positive for my peace of mind
I mean,
and for
that's
my
very
health. I
interesting. It's
think.
very interesting. I think keep a pause on your comments there, Lakhi, and it's very interesting. We've got a shout out from Yemi, I think. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrongly. Good morning from Yemi this morning. He has joined. I believe it's a she because it's a Y. And if it's a bloke, I apologize. But it's a shout out from her or him. And they've joined us. Yeah, okay. So interesting what Lakhi says, Adnan, that he's talking about a physical effect of sitting in, not the psychological effect. He's saying the physical also gets affected. I know you're a gentleman who's quite prone to eating roadkill or chicken roadkill. So how has that affected your lifestyle? Because you're normally out on the streets of your local town looking for roadkill. Has that affected your health because you're not being able to get out that much and having to depend upon the neighbour's chickens? I know you got a chicken yard next door or something. Is that right?
To be honest with you, it hasn't really affected me personally, because even during lockdown, I was still working, so I still had to go out and do my job as per normal. But as far as my family's concerned, it affected them more so, because they were actually locked in house. They didn't want to come out anywhere. So again, we were referring to, let's say, psychological issues and the fear of COVID. And if you have anxiety attacks, then that's going to be a massive trigger that you could catch something.
Serious stuff. Okay, a point there made. So you've got two different people, two business people sitting at home. One probably recognized the physical impact more. The other one recognizes the psychological impact. Now, both matters are brothers and sisters to each other. Not saying that you're a female, Lakhi, and that you're a sister to Adnan. What I'm saying is the topics. So the psychological effect and the physical effect of COVID. So not just the fact that you have a potential virus out there that you could catch by going outside, and that fear keeps you inside. It's that another person is not afraid of catching the virus because he's immune to most things. It's because he's afraid of the physical impact of him not getting his daily exercise. So two similar but adjoining topics that sort of like they meet each other somewhere. So I think then the saying of the weekend, progress, not perfection, has more meaning. Because then in our normal working lives, we work in a certain environment. Like he says, he needs to be out, he needs to get exercise, he needs to feel healthy for him to perform. You, on the other hand, have been affected by the psychology because you've got kids who are putting a burden on you, and that burden is also being impacted by the fact that you are having panic attacks because of your family and your spouse. So the panic attacks that you've had, have they been directly because of your other half? Have they been because the children have sort of all of a sudden popped up from underneath the bed while you're having what's happened? What created this panic attack?
I personally didn't have the panic attacks. It was more my other half. She suffers from these panic attacks. So I had to be more of a support mechanism for her. I.e., for example, I was the one going out and doing all the grafting and getting shopping done, which normally she will do the shopping. So so basically I had to support her with regards to her sort of mental state at the time.
That's really that's very interesting, because in the normal role, in the nature of a man and a woman, it's normally the females who are the ones who are the ones who take care of the food or children's tummies and husband and dad's tummy. But in COVID, somewhat the roles were reversed. So you became like a trans, well, I wouldn't call you a transvestite because you hadn't decided to become a female, but the roles that you were actually enacting were the roles that your wife would normally enact. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Except for the fact you didn't wear the wig. Everything else was the same.
If you say so.
Okay, that's it. Well, we're getting somewhere. I'm trying to get in the middle somewhere. Now we've got an interesting point on that from, I think, Bob Singh, who said he can't eat any more than one children in the morning a day. I think that's what he said. I've actually probably misquoted it, but he said something like that. And Carolyn has come out with a balance, I think. She said, look, you've got to be able to meditate. So a bit of Lakhi's side, that if you meditate, then you don't need the physical. And on Adnan's side, you need to have a balance of healthy activity. So maybe locking the door, going out for a walk, leaving them at their devices is maybe a good thing for you, because it gives you time alone to catch up and get mentally ready, to get back in the house. And so what were you doing then? I mean, I understand you had to go and do shopping. So a lot of your meat then probably came from the supermarket, not from roadkill. Is that right, Adnan?
Yeah, naturally, yeah. All from supermarket.
Supermarket. Okay. Did that affect the diet, the food, the budget?
To be honest, yeah. I mean,
were you eating more? Did you have a larger consumption of food?
Yeah, it went double fold. So let's say, for example, on average, we were having, say, £500 worth of shopping during normal sort of weeks when everything's normal. During COVID, it almost doubled to almost 900 because the kids are at home, they want to eat, you know, so it's consistently.
Wow. Okay. We've got a shout out from Roger Larson this morning as well. Big shout out from Roger. Thank you very much, Roger, for joining the Property Fixer program. Yeah. So you're saying the children, there's probably a psychological effect as well, and that probably got translated in terms of eating disorders. Is that what you're saying? Are the children obese? Have they become rounder now since they've been at home?
No. I think in the beginning, I think first few months they were eating quite a bit. So let's say all the junk foods like, you know, crisps, chocolates, but then we kind of sort of took control and charge of it. So look, you know, enough's enough. Start eating more sensibly now. So most of our diet was, we say, you know, veg and
chicken and chips.
meat. Yeah, forget the
chicken and chips.
Not chicken and chips, no. Home cooked food.
Right. What?
Home cooked food.
Uncooked food. So you were eating it raw, you're saying? Okay, home
cooked.
Well, maybe you're bringing in roadkill and you're just leaving it on the table for everybody to take chunks out as they would. I thought that was probably a bit more primitive, archaic. So I thought maybe the effect of COVID was to take you back to the Stone Age.
Well, it nearly ended up that way. It nearly ended up that way, hasn't it? For most people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair comment. I know Lakhi is scratching there because he's probably eating his porridge. I think you had porridge this morning, Lakhi. What's your comment on this issue? Did you get into an eating disorder? Have you become obese? Are you now taller than you were before?
To be honest, I think, I did get into this eating disorder. I went back to comfort food and having cereals at late night as a sort of comfort dessert.
Listen, now, guys. This is very interesting. How just being made to sit at home and not being allowed to go out, or at least being told that you can't go out, because this is a matter of, we were talking about this topic the other day, government control, wanted to control how people think. You know, we spoke about the Black Lives Matter movement. We spoke about All Lives Matter. We spoke about debt being an illusion and it's been created by the hierarchy, all this stuff. Isn't it a bit interesting how just being forced to stay at home changes your food and your diet? Because I remember, Lakhi Singh, you were a bit of a health guru, aren't you?
Yeah, I try to be very low carbs, sort of greens and porridge in the morning, and eat very little sort of greasy food. But I think I had a sort of like a, what you call it, a feeling that I needed to actually have some food which isn't probably healthy for me, but I couldn't really resist. So this is sort of late in the evenings, probably maybe because I'm probably not getting enough circulation. I'm thinking the reason I can put it down is probably not getting enough circulation, and then the body's craving for certain foods to try and get your energy up. But when you're having that food, it's not giving you the energy; it's actually bringing you down further.
It's storing in your body. Okay, so
that's right.
How did you? I mean, Adnan locks the doors, lets them all stay at home, and goes out, has a walk, I suppose. What were you doing? Well, how were you countering that then? Did you do something to counter stress? Carolyn suggests that one of you two, either you, Adnan, to get on top of your sexuality, need a mentor, and Lakhi, you for your eating disorder, need a mentor possibly. So she's saying both of you guys, if you are guys, need a mentor. And she also suggests that in that you will probably be able to deal with your problems. So tell me, how did you override your issue of your eating? How did you do something to counter it? Did you start exercising at home? Were you a bit like did it change for you? Did it become a bit like, what was it now? The Green Mile for you? Were you sort of like inside
well, I think
jail?
it's actually a bit worse than that. What I did is I thought I was feeling quite lethargic during COVID-19, so I actually decided to get a blood test done. So the blood test said that got slightly high cholesterol. So in some ways, I was forced to stop eating badly, because if I did, the repercussions physically aren't good. So even though I was going out regularly for about half an hour's exercise every day within the confines of the government's framework at the time, what happened is that wasn't really enough. So now that the lockdown is not as fervent, you would say, I'm actually able to I've probably gone back to normal in terms of my my sort of health, my diet, my food. So I've cut down to almost zero now, having any late night snacks.
Okay.
So I think it's been a bit of a,
you had
to
do
like
something.
A sort of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back type situation.
Where are you now? So now you're back to where you used to be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm getting there, but it's taken a little while to get back into the routine.
Okay, so Adnan, saying for the weekend, excuse me, and that is progress, not perfection. What do you think that means in light of the way that COVID has affected you? You were doing work, but were you quite on top of your work, and did you find it affected your ability to do your work?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, it was getting in the way. Well, you know, my family life was getting in the way of my work. So the perfection wasn't there, if I admit it to myself, but it was progress.
Good.
So now if you look at it from this point of view now, when there's a routine in place, and that's a key word that Lakhi just mentioned, routine is very, very important in our lives. So once this routine of the kids going back, the missus going back to work, then obviously for me, it will mean more productivity and more sort of on top of my work. Yeah.
So is there a fear that the kids may catch I know they mentioned in America, one of the states, where they've reopened all the colleges and schools, and out of about 2,000 children, 1,000 have tested positive for the virus.
Wow.
That's a big concern.
Yeah.
As a parent, as a father, are you concerned about any of your munchkins catching a virus?
Yeah, I mean, the first day yesterday was a bit of an eye-opener with the school where my kids go to. None of the kids had any sort of face masks or any sort of protection, and they were
So
all
you were
congregating.
sitting outside the school, you mean, watching
Yeah,
the kids?
I had to sit outside and make sure that the kids got in there safe and what their sort of protocols were. And there wasn't a strict protocol in place. There's this 2 meter distance apart was non-existent.
Well, talking about sitting outside, I mean, Lakhi had, I think, a situation where he's restricted from going within 100 miles of Chuck E. Chuck's. Is that the same? Is that the same issue that you had, Lakhi, when you were sitting outside Chuck E. Chuck's, watching people come in and out? Is that why you were also asked to stay away?
I don't even know what Chuck E. Chuck's is, so I think you need to explain your joke, because maybe the viewers out there trying to understand what you're talking about, but they don't know what you're talking about.
Chuck E. Chuck's is like a fast food, like one of those, like a McDonald's, but a cheaper version, where lots of people in and out have fast food. So sitting outside it obviously may have raised eyebrows as to why you'd be sitting at Chuck E. Chuck's. So what I'm saying is, did you have the same
put it this
problem?
way, considering you brought it up, it's probably something that you've got an issue with. So I think we'll bring Carolyn in to give you some mentorship to coach you through this Chuck E. Chuck thing that you've got going on. But I don't know. I don't know the relevance of that question or anything about Chuck E. Chuck. So whatever you're asking actually has no foundation. So I'll refer you back to Carolyn, shall we?
Okay. Next time we bring her on, we can have a chat with her. But for now, your situation is that you haven't had the same problem as Adnan. He was outside school observing kids. So you found most of the kids without masks on, Adnan, yes?
Yeah, so I was more concerned for my own child than I was for everyone else's child.
Okay. Yeah, so weren't you concerned? Didn't you get anyone on the telephone say, look, Miss Head Teacher or Mr. Head Teacher, you've got these kids, we're going to be mixing with my kids, and nobody's, and is there a guideline? That's what I want to know. Is there a guideline for the schools? Have they given instructions that children should wear masks and keep distance?
Yeah. I mean, they sent us an email, I think, a month prior to the schools were reopening, and they had all these guidance in where there'll be one-way systems in place. But like I said, yesterday was a different thing altogether. Even when we went to pick up my daughter's GCSE results in August, same thing. You know, there was no sort of system in place. Kids are all over the place. I mean, trying to collect their results.
I think this is a big problem because I spoke to a teacher or a head teacher of a school, and this is one of the questions that they raised when they were asking them whether children should go back to school. And they were saying, well, with kids, you just can't implement these rules because they won't listen. As soon as your back turned, they will ignore the rules and they'll be doing what they want to do. And talking about kids and not listening, we go back to Lakhi Singh. So Lakhi Singh, what do you say about trying to implement the covert rules on children, seeing is that you are a child trapped in a man's body?
Yeah, I would say that's true. I'm actually very young at heart. So I'm more like a 21-year-old trapped in a 22-year-old's body.
Hey? More 12 to around, not 2-1 is 1-2 possibly.
Okay, well, I think you could talk for yourself. What I would say is that it's not an easy thing to implement because with children, You may tell them what to do, but just getting them organized in the school, just to sort of be attentive in lessons alone, is actually a feat in itself sometimes for teachers. So for the school to be more comprehensive in terms of other rules and even the government rules, and they're not following them, I don't know really how you solve that problem.
Yeah.
So I think most adults are quite wary because they've got elderly parents or somebody may be sick in the family, so they're wary. But children on the whole may not have that perception around risk because they may think they're untouchable. So going for my daily routine exercise, I found that you get clusters of about 10, 20 kids literally together in the park nearly everywhere that I go, nearly every day. So I don't, for some reason, that they're not.
Adnan, keeping that keyword untouchable. Right. What Lakhi says is discipline, and they don't have a sense of that. What would you say with the COVID, with the virus? Is it not more? Is it psychological? Is this whole thing about changing the psychology of people? Is it really about the virus? Haven't we had many viruses like this before? I mean, a lot of articles coming out suggest that this virus is just like any other virus. I mean, the president of America said it himself. There's no difference between this virus and another virus. People will catch it. Some people will die. Some people will recover. I mean, he was very blasé about it. Is it as bad as the government is making out? Do you see COVID and the effects of COVID around you in the city you live?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I think it's down to individuals and how they deal with it. Me personally, I don't think this COVID-19 is a major health factor to myself or to my family. But then, like, if you look at my partner, for example, she's petrified, and rightly so, because obviously our eldest son is not too well. So for his sake, she's very sort of paranoid. So it's on individual cases and how individuals sort of deal with the whatever the news is bringing out in terms of how deadly this virus is. But we've had swine flu in the past. Again, that was just a blowover.
That's right. I believe
even this
flu as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that blew over. Swine flu. We had SARS not so long ago. I think 2000 as well, and Ebola. That's even more deadly than And these are all more deadlier than COVID-19. So.
Okay, so Lakhi, what do you say then? Are you saying it's interesting that Adnan uses the word? It depends on the message that you're reading in the media. So, are you watching media and press when it comes to the matters of the virus, or are you ignoring it? Because you're quite ignorant in certain things. I know you've mentioned before. You like to ignore things and ignore instructions. Have you been ignoring the news as well, just like you ignore instructions?
What happened is that during the lockdown, just watched the news religiously every day, about 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, dinner time, just to sort of keep up with what's going on. But after about 5 weeks of constant same story, it just became a broken record after a while, and realized that it's just a repetition of the same story with a different element. So I've sort of chosen to probably not pay too much attention to it. I'll just watch the news as and when now. So I might watch news maybe once or twice a week when I get time. I've got a very busy schedule. So what I'm doing is I've sort of taken TV psychologically out of my mind frame in terms of the things I need to get done. So I'd rather be practical than to be caught up with the all the issues or technicalities around what's going on with it. So that's what I've chosen to deal with it, which is to put it aside, be aware of it, be aware of all the rules of what needs to happen when you go out there, what you can and can't do. But that's as far as it goes. I'm not letting it be part of my day-to-day psychology. Sort of embracing it as if it's you know, is a bit of,
Well,
you know, like
I think
this part of my day-to-day routine. So I'm not really letting it be like a psychological phenomena for me. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, because I think Carolyn also is giving you a big shout out or an acknowledgement of your clarity. She said, loved your clarity of the question. So I think she's probably referring to the matter on Chucky Chucks, which is good. So we know now there was never a matter on Chucky Chucks.
He's talking about you.
No, I think she's saying to you that you brought clarity into the question. But anyhow, and that also, I think, from another list, Peter as well, Peter PG. So he also said, love. Okay. Right. Okay. So we're going from mind control. I think that's where the topic's going. Adnan, isn't that where you think this, you know, with a person who's got no hair, the only thing you have got left is the skull in your mind. So is this topic not going over to mind control? How does that feel? You listen to the news, you're watching a box in the corner of your room, you're believing a box, you don't really know where this information is coming from. You don't even know if the people sending you the information actually know what they're reading. I mean, I've seen on various occasions newscasters reading the news, totally emotional. They're talking about 1 million people dying, you know, in some war-torn country in the world. There are no tears in their eyes. They're not emotional about it. They're just reading the news. Now, if the reader, the sender of the message, isn't really emotionally attached to the message, doesn't really know the truth of the message, how is it people sitting in a room listening to that message believe the message? Isn't that where we're going now? Isn't this mind control that we're going to?
Yeah, it's all subliminal messages that they're sending out. Again, it's like, what do you believe? Do you believe the media or do you believe what your own eyes? I mean, it's like, again, in the Midlands, for example, there haven't been that many cases during this whole pandemic. We've only had one person on our street that had COVID-19, and she went to the elderly person's home. So,
right.
Do you believe something that? Yeah, do you believe something that's in front of your eyes, or do you believe what the mass media have been portraying worldwide? And it's a good thing that you mentioned about war-torn countries. We don't know what's happening in Africa and other Islamic countries or wherever there is war taking place. But yet with COVID, we're thinking, oh, it's killing off more people than war can kill off.
And war people. Yeah. Look, now this is perspective, isn't it? This goes back to having clear understanding and being able to read between the lines on certain things. Carolyn said, with regards to the matter you mentioned, the schools, and you sitting at the side of the school and watching the children go in and out and finding that children aren't adhering to the rules. And she says it takes strong leadership. So the schools have to have strong leadership in order to devise clever strategies. But can you really have a strategy that's strong in a children's environment? A difficult question to answer. If we get the chance, we'll ask Lakhi, what do you think? Is it a strong leader that's going to make the school behave in a certain way? Or is it that children are innocent enough to have not been brainwashed by that square box in the room so that they have still an essence of free will and they haven't been droned yet? Isn't that the way it is, Lakhi, maybe?
To be honest with you, I don't know. This is actually a topic I don't really know the answers to or profess to know the answer. But all I know is that, you know, whatever to call it, however the problem has manifested itself, you need to reduce the amount of physical contact and keep the distancing and wash your hands. And if you haven't got a strong leadership or somebody who's organized, it's not going to happen. So I would just say that as a very simple point. But I would take the point about 10 steps higher than that and go back to a lot of things that have been going viral on social media, which is that I think there's at least 4 or 5 countries which are led by women, such as I think it's Taiwan, New Zealand, and there's about 4 or 5 other countries, the majority led by women, where they've had almost 1 death or 2 deaths of COVID-19 in Taiwan and New Zealand. So I think it does come down to leadership, but I would say leadership at the head of the country level rather than at the trying to solve the problem level, which is at the next level down, which is head teachers. The head teachers are literally now babysitting a problem that, pardon the pun, that's actually fallen into their lap, and they haven't really got any opportunity to deal with it at a strategic level. It is actually a strategic issue at a very strategic level. So if those countries have been able to counter COVID-19 effectively, they've done it at the top level with clear leadership skills and clear organization and a clear framework. So the question is, why is it that the leaders of the countries which are failing in their attempt to keep COVID under control, not following the same protocols as the countries that have been effective? That's the question, I think we should be asking ourselves.
Okay, so say that question, repeat that question. That's a bit, you're saying...
I'm just saying, why is it that countries that
Yeah.
have been effective in dealing with COVID-19, such as Taiwan and New Zealand, with the minimal impact of COVID-19, I think they've only had a couple of deaths, or 5 or 3. Why is it that the leaders of the countries that have got the most fatalities, why they're not operating and actually working in the same framework and the same type of leadership in terms of how it's been implemented in those countries?
So what you're trying to say is you're suggesting that is it a smaller population is easily manageable, or are you suggesting that women form better leaders, or are you suggesting women are more empathetic to life and therefore they've taken the matter more seriously, more quickly and urgently than worrying about starting a war somewhere in the world, or trying to control oil reserves somewhere, or trying to do large trade deals with a country? Adnan, what's your take on it? Which one is it? Are females better leaders? Is it that smaller countries are really able to be controlled more easily? Or is it that the leaders of bigger economies, let's talk about not country, but economies where money and the risks of money are higher, their intent, their interest or their focus is more on economical recovery and sustenance and trying to repair the damage than worrying about deaths and the lives of a few 100,000 people. And are women more empathetic? Are they because they're motherly by their instincts? Is that why they're better leaders? Is leadership about being empathetic, or is it about being clear? What's your take on it?
I mean, look, if you're going to compare 2 leaders that we are more well aware of, Nicola Sturgeon and Boris Johnson, I mean, I don't know if you've seen, obviously, 2 characteristics. I mean, who would you rather have as your prime minister at this current matter in the stage?
Yeah, probably have Boris Johnson as a doorman and Sturgeon as the maid.
Yeah, so, but that's the whole point. So in terms of where they are, I mean, if you're looking at, let's say, women being more, let's say, empathetic, they will probably do more to stop this sort of virus than us sort of men will be. We're just like reckless, if you want to put it that way. We won't get out there.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. Let's say the issue is empathy. It's not about how big the economy is, and it's not about where the country is. Let's say it's empathy. Okay, empathy. Totally agree with the point. So what is it that New Zealand did right that England isn't doing then? Lakhi Singh, you gave the example, so I'm sure you may have some information for us to
Actually, I've seen a few programs in passing about it. I haven't necessarily followed all the technical details. But I think one of the major ones that I remember, so because I'm not an expert in this area, nor do I want to be, is that one of the first things a lot of these countries did is they stopped any international travelers coming in as a must, I think. And then if travelers were coming in, then they carried out checks on all of them and put them in quarantine. So I think that was probably one major thing that was done that's been significant, probably been critical in creating that difference between hundreds of thousands of deaths and only a few deaths, I would say. That's
so did America do the same thing? Didn't America do the same thing? Hasn't the UK done the same thing?
No, I think they took action quite late, and I think they allowed a lot of people still to come in and out for quite a few weeks, and I think that's actually increased the spread of the disease. So I think that's one major thing that I can think of. And the second, I think
Boris Johnson used a terminology which is a bit shocking. I mean, I'm surprised that the press didn't pick up on it, and that is the herd immunity. So leaders of worlds or of the developed world are referring to their population as cattle. So they were using a terminology called herd immunity. Do you know what that means, Adnan? Herd immunity?
No. But obviously, from what you're saying right now, if you're saying cattle, if you compare it to cattles, so basically it means that we are just we're just allow all meat to slaughter or going to slaughterhouse. Is that what?
Well, yeah, I mean the terminology.
I think that's a bit of a leading question, Vijay sir.
Yeah, a bit of a needy.
I think to put clarity on the matter, herd immunity is a term to sort of say the more people that get it, the more likely it is that it'll go through the system and people will be able to better fight it, is the general theme behind that term, I think.
So why not crowd immunity? Why herd immunity then?
I don't know. I think it's just a term that's been probably used in the past somewhere, and it's been resurrected as a form of a way of communicating this particular process of actually letting the COVID-19 fall into its natural progression and just leave things as they are for it to go through the system of everybody.
Okay.
And then
let's suppose that's a strategy. At whose cost? How many people are going to have to die before the immunity is picked up, before immunity becomes the normal? How many people have to die?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I don't think it's a strategy that was implemented. It was something that was bandied about as a part of the discussion. But I don't think they ever actually decided to implement it in that way. But certain experts suggested that may be one strategy to counter COVID-19. And I don't really know at what point or what level, if at all, actually was even taken seriously as a way of. I
wouldn't take it seriously. I mean, I find it really difficult to imagine Lakhi walking around with an udder. It wouldn't make sense. Finding it difficult to imagine. What do you reckon, Adnan? Can you imagine Lakhi walking around with an udder on him with lots of teeth hanging off his stomach? Wouldn't quite work. What do you reckon?
I'm not going to comment on that.
You're going to comment. Okay. Right. So moving on. It's really interesting because I'm getting into the psychology of the way people think on these things, and what seems worrying, I would say, that we don't really know what the virus is. We're talking about the effects of it. We know there's something there. We know that we've been told to stay at home. What if they just said to us, you can't come out because there's a big boogeyman and he may come down at any time and jump on you and stamp on you and you'll die. Would people believe that as quickly as they believe the virus?
I don't know. What was you saying, Lakhi?
Well, no, I mean,
highly unlikely, I would say, if that's a serious question even.
No, it's a serious question. I'm just asking you. All my questions are serious. But what I'm trying to say is, if they had to use anything else and not a virus, I mean, is it trying to check? Okay, a question that I'm trying to pose, and I'm sure probably not coming out the right way. Are they trying to create fear to test their system of control? And I remember early on, Adnan, you mentioning that once they first put in this practice of people being forced to stay at home, and they gave the police powers to stop someone going out, and if they found them not to be going in the direction where there was a supermarket, because I think at the beginning they said only for chemists, pharmacists, chemists, food, and medicine, or hospitals, anything else would be regarded as non-essential journey. And they said the police were given powers that if someone went out, they could stop them, question them, and they found that they weren't genuine in their reasons, they could get fined, I think, or something. Is that right, Adnan?
Yeah, I think that was the thing that came out, where you get fined and points in your license as well. I mean, I didn't go and see, for example, my family in London for over 3 months. So it's like, just for that sake, to avoid police brutality, if you want to call it that way.
All right, so getting beaten up, basically.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people...
Is that the fear you had? They would stop you and stop search and then get you out of the car, beat you up. So you would have been another Black Lives Matter type of situation.
Yeah, you never know.
No, I'm asking. It's a serious question, because it's not like it doesn't happen in the United Kingdom. I mean, the question is, systemic racism has been proven. It was in the report as well. I forgot the gentleman who was assigned. I think it was in the Tony Blair years, and he came out with one of the conclusions that the police is systemically racist. I mean, when you've got 97 or 98% Caucasian officers, it's not going to be rocket science for you to work that one out. Yes? So you were actually afraid not to go out and break that rule for being afraid of being stopped, beaten up, and maybe even... Okay.
And obviously, for the sake of, let's say, even for my own family as well. So, like, if I was, let's say, for example, arrested, or even just going out.
That's really that's amazing to understand how much of an impact that order or that understanding was. Has that remained as a law, or was that temporarily? Has that been suspended now, or is that an ongoing law now?
No, that's suspended now, VJ. That's no longer a case now. Certain areas of the UK have faced lockdowns. Leicester's most recent, I think, the one I know of. Some parts of, let's say, Northwest, Bradford, they went locked down. But not as a whole country.
I think there was an issue to do with the last the Eid festival for the Muslims. They, I think, on Monday morning, sent a text out to the local communities telling them they were restricted from meeting each other. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. That's in Bradford.
Okay, aren't these all little tests or little, sort of toe dips into controlling population? What do you say, Lakhi? What's your take on it? Were you actually restricted from meeting in the Gurdwara or going to any function or community halls, or was it slightly easier?
Yeah, I think you couldn't really visit the Gurdwaras either. I think they only opened up, I think, about 3 months afterwards, and only for short periods of time. And then you still had to maintain social distancing and wear masks. So I think it's. I've been a bit careful as well, not obviously to make sure I don't get go out or do any unnecessary travel anyway before that. but even after that, you become quite wary, a bit conditioned not to be going out really, if you can help it. So it's a bit strange after the lockdown dates where you can go out and do things. I think the biggest relief in terms of going out was the day, I think it was at the end of mid-May or in May sometime, where they said that you can go out for the all day now to do exercise as much as you want. So I think that's probably the biggest day in terms of
listening to these sound bites of instructions, it looks to me like a bit of a science movie where government is checking how people behave, the effects of that behavior. And I remember, Lakhi, a while ago, we had a chat, and you were telling me about some gentleman who had a health spa or an alternative treatment center, and he showed you software. I'm not talking about that type of software. I'm talking about health software, which actually he professed to you this software could be used to control mood swings of people remotely. Is that right, Lakhi?
That's right. There's, I think, the technology for mind control. I think there's lots of there's a channel called Blaze Channel, and they talk about lots of conspiracy theories, but they go into the technology around mind control, which is quite sophisticated even in the 70s and 80s. So, but I have actually physically seen instruments which I think are probably, although for what I saw is very sophisticated, I'm sure the technology is about 20 or 30 times more advanced now. So much so that the type of technology that exists in mind control is not probably even comprehensible by the common person. That's my opinion on it, based upon what I've seen.
Quite worrying. So, Adnan, are you worried about being controlled by chicken and chips?
Yeah, 100% I will be. I'll be very worried if chicken and chips.
I know there was a conspiracy theory. Yeah, there was a conspiracy theory that you had that the chicken that you were eating was effectively injected with mind control serum. Is that right?
Not sure if that came about in a topic that I spoke about, but it'd be a worry. It would be a worry if that was the case. Then I wouldn't be eating nothing then. I'll probably have vegetables all day long.
Right, okay, so you'd rather have a carrot than a chicken?
No.
Pardon?
No. But if that was the case, then I will be worried.
Yeah. Okay. I think my way of looking at this whole situation, mind control, debt is an illusion. Now we're going back to that question that's been underlying the whole week. Is debt real? Is it an illusion? And remember, debt is created by corporations that own government, are bigger than government, who influence policy. And I'm just doing a quick summary of where we're at. And it seems even the virus isn't really a physical virus. It's a virus that affects us mentally. And you've been locked up in your own houses. Having been locked up, it was an experiment by government to see how far they could push the bounds in controlling the way populations behave. Because technically, within a few weeks, the whole of the world, and they were saying about 4.5 billion of the world was under lockdown at one time. That's humongous. That's worrying. That's astounding that somebody who doesn't really know anything more about the virus than it's a virus that is airborne can actually lock down the entire world literally within weeks. Isn't that worrying? Isn't that a question that needs to be answered? Are we really going in the right direction with this virus? is this virus really real? Are the deaths really real? There's a recent article that says that this virus isn't respiratory, because they initially said the virus affects your respiratory system and that's where it attacks from. But now they're saying it's a blood illness as well. Means it will attack your organs and different parts of your body. So where are we? What have we learned? Where are we taking the learning from this virus? Are we becoming ever more controlled by big government, or are we realizing that we need to take control of our own lives and look at things outside of that little black box that's in the corner? Adnan, what do you say?
Yeah, I think you're right there. Because if we're going to start believing what they're saying all the time, the government, then we're not going to live our lives the way we want to live it. And if you look at, let's say, entrepreneurs out there, the most successful ones, let's say, like Lakhi is successful in his entrepreneurship business. If he believed what the black box said all the time, he wouldn't think outside the box and create his own personal wealth. So it's, yeah, I think if you want to take matters into your own hands, then do what you want to do within the realms of the laws, if that's what I say. But yeah, I won't believe half things that will come out of that TV or media.
Okay, Lakhi, that's a thought. Last minute, please. We're running over time, but a last minute for you to summarize on that. Are we slowly being controlled, and is there a way of countering this position?
Okay, I think I'll make quite a blunt point. I'd say stop watching TV and get on with your lives, because the TV and the messages you're getting from it in itself are very toxic. So if you can get the toxicity out of your life, the time that you're spending watching TV could be better spent in actually creating a more fulfilling, healthy, wealthy life for yourself. So the box in itself is actually the control mechanism. So if you switch off the control mechanism, you can set yourself free. So that's my message.
Thank you very much, Lakhi Singh. We've just run out of time, and thank you so much for everybody. Thanks a lot, Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. Adnan as well. Thanks a lot for your time. LPA Properties. So yes, interesting. We will see everybody next week on the drive time from Monday onwards. Remember, next week it will be every morning from Monday to Friday. Next week, the underlying topic is going to be LPA receivers and all the matters. Sorry, it's wrong. Negative equity properties. That's the topic next week, and we'll have that as an underlying topic for the 5 days. Negative equity properties, and we'll have the quote of the week, and we'll feed that to you over the weekend. Keep listening, keep watching. Thank you so much for everyone and all your comments. Speak to you next week. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.